Two.
Hey Ron, how are you, my friend, and everybody else that's listening? This is a great pleasure. I would spend an hour talking to you about God, Ron, if nobody was listening. I mean, I can't believe we had to get a crowd around for us to have this conversation.
And Sheldon, as you well know, we have done that.
We have
Uh,
many
in,
times.
in the course of your, I like to say that you're biblical for me. Sheldon knows. Sheldon and I have had a great relationship as a bride. First, let me just tell everybody, my name's Ronald White. I'm an alcoholic. Sobriety date is July the 14th of 1986. That's just by way of introduction. Would you like to introduce yourself, my friend?
Sheldon Petty, alcoholic, sober since July 17th of 1996. Um, Home group is a Common Solution Group, and my sponsor's name is Charlie H., and he is well aware he is my sponsor. So,
And my home group is called the Never Too Early Big Book Workshop. We've been meeting continuously since November of 1987. A group started at my mother's home. 13 alcoholics gathered around a table, and we now number on the online platform. We have anywhere between 450 and 500 intimate friends that gather together every Sunday morning to talk about our book, Alcoholics Anonymous. And I have a sponsor, Sheldon, who knows he's my sponsor. We actually just had a great conversation last night. His name is Jerome Scott, and Jerome has about 52 years of sobriety, and a guy I met in my home group, 9604 South Figueroa. I want to tell you this, Sheldon. I think even though you and I have had a chance to talk together, Raquel had me on this platform previously with a sober member, and I meant to listen to the tape because I wanted to make sure I didn't repeat myself. Because obviously, when you talk about God, and if you talk about significant things in relation to that, there are events that have taken place in my life that have shaped my perception with God. I say that as an entree of asking you, Sheldon, is there anything you can think of that was a significant left an imprint on you in terms of your conception, or maybe your first conception of a higher power or God?
when I first came to AA, and I wasn't able to stay sober, so I showed up in I think 92, late 92 for the first time. And, you know, my life's a disaster, as you can imagine. And I'm looking for a solution. And when I came to AA, the first thing that I experienced was, and it's so funny because this is, directly out of the big book. But when I first read this in the big book, I was like, what are you talking about? How did you know? But my first thought was, this is great. Here are people that used to drink. They don't drink anymore. They seem to have their life together. They're nice. They're friendly. I mean, they would buy me a hamburger. They give me cigarettes. There were girls there. I mean, it was everything that you could want. And then they said that the solution they had found is God. And I just thought, oh, come on. So it can't be. You're lying. I mean, after I finally found an answer, and it's this hokey nonsense. They tried to teach me a little bit about it when I was a kid, but it just was so disappointing that was going to be the answer, because it really felt like there was no answer. Um, I I grew up in a Jewish home, and I was surrounded in the Jewish community in a cultural sense. A lot of anti-Semitism in England at the time. I grew up in England, and we were culturally kind of forced together in what we lovingly call a Jewish ghetto, right? I went to a Jewish school and my friends were Jewish. I was surrounded by, but we were in no way a religious family. My mom used to say that, religion is the opiate of the masses. It's for fools and children, and then her next statement would be, get dressed, we're going to temple, right? So I just was honestly, my first, knowledge that God was going to be the answer was disappointment is really the word that comes to mind. How about you, Ron? What was it for you?
All right. So you have to excuse me. I was just gesturing at a pastor that just walked in the door, probably thought I was trespassing in one of her rooms at her church. Somebody has allowed me some space here. I do some work at a church, and I told them I'm speaking at a meeting. I need a room to speak in. And so this guy gave me a room, and this pastor just unlocked the door and looked in on me like I was stealing something. So to show you my relationship with God, anyway.
You're still stealing from the church.
I'm sitting in there, she looking at me like, "What are you doing in here?" Anyway, so I'm going to address a couple of things, Sheldon. So you may very well know my mom just passed away. My mom just passed away 12 days ago. My mother was my earliest bastion of an abiding belief and faith in God. My mother had us in church. I have 5 brothers, as you all well know. I've got a couple of them on here now. Ralph and Reggie are on here now. We were raised in the church, literally raised in the church. My grandparents, all my people, my mother came from Mississippi. My grandparents came from down south. And they were Southern Baptists. They were really, really, and I mean really fervent believers in God and in church. And so we were raised every Sunday. We would be taken to a church. And my earliest memories, we would ride with our grandparents to a church my grandfather helped found here in Los Angeles. He and some other folks who had immigrated to Los Angeles from down south. And it was called Weller Street Baptist Church. Weller Street was a church that you would be there all day, Sheldon. This was my memory of church. We would arrive in the morning. We'd have Sunday school. Then you'd have regular church. Then there'd be a break. There would be people making food. We eat at church, and then we'd be there for the evening service. You leave early in the morning. You would get home till late at night. And this was every Sunday, right? And so I was almost like, I won't say force-fed church because it's the only thing I knew. All I knew is, and it was very passionate, very fervent preaching, and the choir was real big. Music is real big. And so, there's a lot of passion that is shown, but these are my earliest memories. A guy pounding on the pulpit, a guy who doesn't sound very literate. He doesn't sound real, because I'm a little nerd. Even as a child, me and Ralph and Reggie were addicted to books, to reading. And so I have a good vocabulary, and I'm thinking this guy's up here talking about, and they're just saying, wait a minute, you pronounce the word, I'm thinking, and we read the Bible, and I know how to I know how to pronounce these biblical names. I know how to do it. And I'm thinking they're not doing it right, but this is my perception. I'm going to the side. It's of God's going to get you if you screw up, right? My idea was punishing. That's the first thing that I'm thinking of God as a vengeful creature, as somebody who was looking down and is just looking not for the good things. He's looking for the bad things. That it's a God who is going to get you if you even think something wrong. Oh, I'm in trouble now, right? Even though I wasn't doing very bad, I have a very vivid imagination even back then, and I know that now I'm certain from being, see, this is the beauty of Alcoholics Anonymous, Sheldon, because now I get to look in hindsight. I get to do that time traveling we do to understand things. I understand now that as a child, those were the things my brain focused on. Those were the things that I heard. It wasn't everything that was said. I can even see it now in meetings. People say stuff, and then my interpretive process, this perception I have, shapes what I hear. So what I was hearing is, and I'm thinking, I read a lot of comic books, and so the God of my perception was almost like Poseidon. Is Poseidon or is it Neptune? Whoever that is, that dude is with that's sitting on a throne with a long white beard, that's got kind of like a scepter, that's got something like that, you know. And so this is my perception of God, that God is a superhuman being that's going to kick our ass, that's going to really, not more than kick, consign me to hell. And I've got a very vivid picture of what hell is. That's people down there with anvils, and it's real hot, and it's real, you know, and it's all. So that's kind of like where I come from. I know that was a long answer to say that I have a comic book perception of God based on what I think I'm hearing being preached from the Bible and from these very fantastical tales that are in the Bible, right? You know, some really trippy shit, right? That I'm hearing in the Bible. And so these are the things, but I've never doubted there was a God. I've never in my life have I ever doubted there was a God. I simply thought, I don't know what kind of relationship I can have, you know, with God, with something like that.
Yeah, as you're telling your story, I'm remembering, you know, that although I had completely rejected Judaism, you know, it's an Old Testament God, and the Ten Commandments are the first 10. There are 613. I used to have to sing a song when I was a kid, right? 613 laws in the Torah. And I'd wear the silk shawl called a tzitzit with threads and knots that you'd have to wear under your clothes with the tassels hanging out, and it's the knots are tied in a certain way for a math equation that comes up to 613 to remind you, if there is a God, you'll never live up to what he wants, you know. And so I come to AA and I'm told that God's the answer. I have a couple of reactions, and the first one is that I don't believe in God. The history of the Jewish people is one of persecution. And you're told two things, right? You're told that we've been persecuted forever and we're God's chosen people. And it's like the old joke, you know, for once, God, can you choose somebody else? I mean, it doesn't seem like a good deal to be God's favorite, first of all, right? I mean, I'm raised by people that have just survived the Holocaust, right? I'm born in '68, and these are survivors of the Holocaust that are in our community. And prior to that, the stuff in Russia and the Ukraine where my family came from. And so, yeah, and then the other thing you learn as a young Jew, whether you reject it or not, is you learn you can never be a Christian. I mean, it's just what you learn. You know, you learn it through a combination of teaching of your elders, and then you learn it from the prejudice that you receive on the street, and that you're different and you're an outcast and you're a Christ killer and you could and so I show up in 1996 in Las Vegas surrounded by middle-class white America, non-Jewish middle-class America, and they're all talking about God, and I know who they're talking about. And, you know, how do you make amends for killing a guy's kid? I mean, I don't even know how I can get a relationship with this guy they're talking about, because they weren't talking about that. But I didn't know that. I just made assumptions that either I had to pick my childhood God that I'd rejected, or I had to pick this God that I had been raised to believe I could never have a relationship with. And you know, I didn't stay sober. For the first 3 years, what I would do when people would bring up God, because I want to be a joiner, and I want to be accepted, and I know that I'm supposed to be here. And so when you ask me if I believe in God, I say yes, because I tried having the debate with you. I tried saying no, but it's pointless. You're just going to get lectured at and prayed over. And, so I say, yes, I believe in God, and I don't believe in God. I believe that I'm powerless over alcohol. There's evidence in my life that says that I can't drink and I can't do no drugs. There is enough overwhelming evidence to say that. And a power greater than myself. I mean, boy, it would be nice, wouldn't it, if there was one? I mean, it's almost like I agree that there needs to be one. I agree that needs to be the solution. And I'm not coming from a point of, and I'm all powerful. I'm not coming from a point of, there is no power greater. I'm not coming from that place. I'm just coming from a lack of doubt that there is anything in this world other than the human experience. And I mean, I'm hopeful, but I'm doubtful. And then you want me to say this third step prayer, and I do it, and then I drink, and I do it, and I drink, and I start to do what they call the AA waltz, right? 1, 2, 3, drink. 1, 2, 3, drink, and I do that for 3.5 years until July of '96 when I was able to get some traction in AA, and gratefully I was sponsored by a man that. And this guy was my sponsor for the first 20 years of my sobriety. He saved my life. It's remarkable the ability that I had to connect with him in those early days and the things that he said. He told me that I didn't have to believe in anybody's idea of God. He said all I had to do was stop resisting the idea. Just get off the debating team and have an experience and see what happens. And he didn't use these words, but this is what I have come to, as you talk about, as our perception changes over time. In early sobriety, in this step 2 experience, people will often say this. They'll say, just come. Right? Just come. And if you come long enough, perhaps eventually you'll come to. And the fog will lift and the fog will clear. And after you come to, maybe eventually you'll come to believe. And I think that is very valuable to someone who is brand new and just showing up. And that certainly was helpful to me. But it's very passive. It's very much trying to get AA by osmosis. And I think what I had to do at some point was change the punctuation in that phrase. And instead of come to believe in a passive way, I had to say, I am going to come for the purpose of believing. I am going to come to believe. I am going to start to look for evidence of a God I don't believe in. And I'm going to be sober. And I'm going to do these actions and the activities and the work and the book, and I'm going to be sponsored and sponsor, and I'm going to try and help do people, and I'm going to do all these things. But in that, I am going to actively show up in a way where I am looking for evidence of this power. And I think it probably took me 6 months or a year before I was able to change my attitude from defending against my right not to believe to begin to say, okay, I don't know if I believe, but I'm going to be open enough to begin to see if I can find evidence. And then like Shoemaker talks about the scientific approach, where I'm going to run the experiment, and I'm going to try to trust in a God that I don't believe in, and see if he shows up, and see if I can get evidence one way or the other. And that's, I think, when my approach changed, where I was able to start to find this power, was when I was willing to say, okay, I don't know one way or the other. So let's run the experiment and see if we can find any evidence.
Okay, so I kind of hate you about right now because you've thrown out about 60 thoughts while you've been talking. And I'm old, Sheldon. I'm 70. On Sunday, I'm gonna be 71. Sunday is my birthday, December 7th. That's commercial for anybody out there who feels, generous. I didn't take notes while you were going there because there's so many things that you said that just raised these thoughts in me, very provoking thoughts. And unfortunately, Raquel, I almost got a little angry at her when she was introducing us because she introduced you as the perception shifter. And then she said, I'm the guy who's all over the I was thinking to myself, why can't I be a perception? Why do I have to be the guy all over the place, right? But I'm about to show how I'm the guy all over the place. All right, so I'm the person. Let me. I'm gonna try to work from the back and come all the way back to the front. When you talked about Sheldon, and it was so about this coming to believe, right? I'm coming here to believe, and I need to have that. What about the guy who was like the guy that sat before Carl Jung, Roland Hazard, when Dr. Jung says, okay, I've heard about dudes having spiritual experience, these things we call vital spiritual experiences. And Roland said, shit, I go to church. He said, I believe. And the doctor told him, sir, I'm sorry to say that whatever you get from church, it ain't good. That's how I've always believed. So what about the guy who believes and can't stay sober?
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
What about the guy who has no doubt that there's a power because I didn't have a relationship? I've never had, in my church, this is what a spiritual experience looked like. The choir gets going and the preacher gets going, and then there's some lady in church that gets up, right? And she starts wiggling like she's having a seizure or something, and she starts speaking in tongues, and she starts that's what a spiritual experience looked like for me. And I've never felt anything like that. Now, I'm much too prideful to do that, even if I felt it, probably. I've never wanted to, make a fool of myself in public. But I've never felt that. I had never felt, I guess, what they call the Holy Ghost is what they call it, feeling the spirit of the Holy Ghost, the Holy Spirit within. I've never felt it. Sheldon, I've always kind of felt that I was defective in some way. That in some way, the God that I knew existed somehow knew that I was not worthy. How can I put it into words? When I was, you talked about the experience as a Jew, right? The Jewish experience. And as a black guy growing up in the 60s, when I start learning, and I know history, and it's the civil rights movement, and I think about slavery, and I think about poverty, and I think about social injustice, and I think about racial inequality, and and my mother is still saying, but God will show us a way, God, if I, and I'm thinking to myself, look at us. God, apparently, why would you think God is going to be doing something for us? Because the evidence of now, mind you, my mother was able to raise 6 boys by herself, right? And I know it had to be hard for her, working a couple of jobs, going to night school, doing all kinds of other stuff. But it was her belief in a power that gave her the impetus, the strength in order to do that. Sheldon, I don't know what it is about being an intellect. I don't know if that's a good thing or if it's a bad thing, because my intellect was killing me. It was choking me. I graduated from law school at 23. I passed the bar the first time out. I'm homeless 6 years later. I'm the guy that doesn't believe God works, and I'm living in my mother's house, and she's the person that believes God does work. You talked about evidence, right? Bill Wilson sat looking at his friend Ebby, and Bill saying, "Ain't no God." Ebby's sober, and Ebby saying, "There is a God," and Bill's still saying, "Ah, you know." See, I'm a I used to be a criminal defense attorney, and I know that cases are won by the strength of the evidence. You talked about that, seeing proof of the thing. Why can't I see? Raquel said at the very beginning, be quick to see where religious people are right. Why can't I see the evidence of what a higher power can do in a person's life with the belief in a higher power? No, but the book doesn't even say find God. The book says seek God.
Mm-hmm.
It says it's in the seeking. It's not in the
Mm-hmm.
finding. It's in the seeking. And it's once I started, because I've always been a guy who thinks that if I get an A on my paper, I'm better than everybody. And I found out it ain't about the A's. It's about, remember how they used to, I don't know, Sheldon, if in your school, if they had grades that said like A, and then they had two other grades, like EE or BUS. U stood for unsatisfactory, S was satisfactory, E was for excellent. They gave you grades for effort, and they gave you grades for, I forget what the other one, I don't know if it was like your behavior or the way that you acted or whatever. And what I found out that in Alcoholics Anonymous, we don't even have to grade what's the word I want to say? We don't have to grade on our knowledge, we grade on our effort.
Mm-hmm.
And as long as I try to establish a relationship. Right now, I told you I'm sitting in this room in this church every other week as a consequence of my work that I do as a drug and alcohol counselor for some folks. They asked me, they saw the work I do, they saw the way people were attracted to me, and all I am is what you guys taught me to be, Sheldon, which is honest, open-minded, and willing. And I get to work with the homeless population, and they ask me every other week, can you come to this church? And even though these folks aren't your clients, can you just talk to them and work with you? Do you know I sat in a room with 17 homeless guys today, each one of them saying something from their experience. And do you know that I heard the voice of God when they were talking? Sheldon. Not that any of them were God, but I was sitting in the room and I was thinking to myself, I am in a room with 17 people that got various kinds of mental illnesses, mental distress, this, that, and the other, and all of them are sitting, coexisting together. That you guys have given me something. You know where I got that from? From running meetings.
Mm-hmm.
From coming at Alcoholics Anonymous and chairing a meeting that I've been able to do something like that. That's the evidence you've been talking about, Sheldon. I don't know where I was looking for. I was looking for love in all the wrong places. I was looking for God in all the wrong places all this time. That I find God in the strangest places. When I talk to you, and I'm going to have to I told you I'm going to be all over the place, just like Raquel said. Sheldon, when you and I talk, when you said that I called you that day, I called you today when you were about to go sign some papers, I think signing your business away or doing something like that. When I called you, it was on, I forget what that day was, why it was I called you. But when you and I talked on that particular day, when I talk to you, Sheldon, and you share yourself with me, I hear the voice of God. When you share with me every time, Sheldon. Now, I jokingly call you Job. You don't know how much I admire you. With all the shit that you put on yourself and all the shit that you go through and stuff. You have absolutely no idea what you mean to me. There are people that I see right in these squares right now, and I heard the banter before the meeting. I heard God in the room. When we talking about establishing, I can see it now. I can hear it now. I can't, it's like pornography. I can't really give you a definite, but I know it when I see it.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Mm-hmm.
And this is it, man.
Yeah.
Anyway, so as far as, I'm trying to think of the right question I want to ask you, Sheldon, right now, with where you're at, both in your personal life and in your professional life, have you been challenged with your belief in a higher power?
Um, well, I will give you a quick thumb sketch. And you know this, Ron and Ralph, and many of the guys in the squares know some of this story. But when I got sober, the first almost 20 years, my life was kind of on a rocket ship. I could do no wrong. I mean, it was like I get sober. This little awkward fat guy that gets the prettiest girl in the room. We get married, have a kid. I get promoted. Next thing you know, I'm the executive general manager of a major Chevrolet dealership. I'm printing money. I can't, I'm trying to spend it all and I can't. I mean, big house, a prominent member of my home group. I've been, since I was 8 or 9 years sober, they've been asking me to speak at conventions. I mean, I'm the poster child for AA, and I don't like admitting this, but deep down inside me, somewhere, I think that those of you that have normal lives probably have some unmade amends, and it's your fault. And if you were wonderful like I'm wonderful, then you'd be wonderful too. And we should probably sit down and examine your program to find out what's going wrong. And right about 8 or 9 years ago, uh, there's a line in the book that people like to quote, but they don't like to quote the whole line. Things started to go wrong, and a lot of it was my doing. Not all of it was. I'm still a little bit of a victim, but most of it was my doing. I was married for 20 years, and I had an affair. I stepped out on my wife, and I will tell you, the day before that happened, if you would have asked me if it was possible, I would have said no way. A guy like me would never do something like that. And 24 hours later, I was laying naked next to someone, going, "Oh my God, how did that happen? And when could it happen again?" uh, and the line that I'm referring to is the line that says a self-imposed crisis, right? I was told by people, you have a self-imposed crisis. What they forget to say that it was a self-imposed crisis I could neither postpone nor evade. It was coming down the track, and that's what was going to happen. And what happened is I got a very public divorce, and for reasons I won't get into during that divorce, I ended up changing home groups, changing sponsors, um, uh, obviously losing financially. I just gave her everything and walked away. And I had a business that was failing, and it did eventually fail a number of years later. It was actually my AA birthday. You called me on July 17th to wish me happy birthday, and it was exciting because 2 days later I was filing bankruptcy to close my business that had failed. So my business had failed. I had a stroke in the middle of this time. And in the stroke, I had a seizure. And in the seizure, I broke my back. And I was bedridden for a while. And it was just one thing after another. Um, Again, the medical stuff wasn't my doing. But a lot of the other stuff, boy, to say I played a part, minimize it. I don't mean to do that. I mean, my DNA was all over all of it. I made decisions based on self that later placed me in a position to be hurt. There's no doubt about that. And through all of that, has my faith been shaken? My faith comes in waves, like the waves of the ocean crashing on the beach. Sometimes the tide is in, and I can feel God all around me, and I feel like I'm swimming in the Spirit of this connection, this relationship that I formed with a God of my own understanding. And when I say God, I often joke that it's probably not the God that some of you suspect. I mean, I'm a quasi-pagan, somewhat Buddhist, atheist Jew that's fascinated by quantum physics. I mean, you can't even, I couldn't put a name on what I believe other than the fact that I know. I love when you talked about hearing God speak through other people. I often feel like there's only one of us here, that we are all expressions of whatever this power, this energy is, and that we are as connected as my left finger and my right finger are connected to each other. We're all just part of the same body. But anyway, sometimes I will feel completely awash, and other times I will feel alone. It will feel like low tide. It will feel like the waves have receded. I'll often tell a story about being in Florida in Fort Lauderdale at the beach one time with my ex-wife, and at this particular beach, the tide was out, and there were sandbars a few hundred yards out in the ocean, and the water had receded behind the sandbars. You couldn't see the ocean. There was that much sand you couldn't see. But I didn't think that anyone had unplugged the Atlantic Ocean and the water had drained away. I knew the ocean was still there. It was just far away, and I was unable to access it. And sometimes I do feel like that. You know, I'm not one of these guys that I know and admire in AA that once they plugged in, they stay plugged in, and they feel the Spirit of the God always and all the time. I have knowledge that God is always with me, but sometimes I feel alone and afraid. But I do know that it's coming back. I do know that it is, and my relationship with God is, although a spiritual relation, it is experiential. I began to formulate my relationship with God in the same way that I experience God today, and that is in a lot of ways in hindsight. You know, our friend Bazant says that we experience life forward and we understand it backwards. And I'm a guy that was told early on, pray to God even though you don't believe in him. Trust that God's going to help you even though you don't think he is. And then a few weeks or months later, you're talking to your sponsor and he says, how's that thing going? And you say, it worked out. And you say, how did it work out? And you say, I don't know. And he says, well, maybe it's because you prayed. And you go, oh, maybe it is because I prayed. And then that's how I begin to experience God, is that, you know, why am I sober today? I don't know. God's the only person I asked to keep. I didn't ask you to keep me sober. I love you, but I know you can't do that. And I didn't ask my sponsor to keep me sober. He's a great guy, but God's the only way. And so my relationship with God is very experiential, but not transactional. I think in the beginning it was transactional. I think it started out with, I'll pray, and if it works out, I'll start to believe. But it's no longer transactional. It's now completely experiential. I want to share this. I want to go a little bit off topic, but I moved to share this a little bit because I've come to the other side of this in the last 4 or 5 years. And what's funny is that I came to this started before the trouble started. And I feel like I'm coming to the other side of it in the middle of these troubles. And I am in the middle of them. I'm currently unemployed. I don't know how smart I am taking a 6-week vacation in the Philippines in the middle of my unemployment, but I figure if I'm going to get a job, I probably won't get a vacation for a while. So what the hell, right? This could be another self-imposed crisis that I couldn't postpone. But I'll get a job when I get home. I'm not concerned about that. So anyway, what had happened to me was I had this belief in God. I had this knowledge that God existed. I had this experience with God. But I lost my ability to pray because I couldn't find God's face. And that's the only way that I can explain this. I couldn't Like if I'm going to talk to you, Ron, I need to tap you on the shoulder and have you turn and look at me. I need to see your eyes and I need to see you nod and I need to hear the ahas and the right. I need the reinforce. And I couldn't find God's face. I felt like I was praying into a void and there was no point in praying. And it wasn't that I didn't believe. It was almost like I got in this rut where I thought, well, God knows my mind. He knows my heart. He knows what I'm doing. But I'm not praying because I don't know where to pray or who to pray to. And I was stuck there for a couple of years. And it was not scary in a way where I'd lost my faith, because I hadn't lost my faith, and not scary in a way where I thought that I would lose my sobriety, because I had faith that God would keep me sober. But it was a lonely time because I felt like I didn't have the ability to really communicate with God. And I considered Buddhism. I considered going back to temple. I considered a Christian experience, and none of them seemed to make any sense to me. I couldn't find a way to connect there. And God is funny. I had a conversation many years ago with a close friend of mine who is a devout Mormon, and he's a, he was a deacon. Kids went to BYU. He's super Mormon, and we would talk about God. And after a couple of years of our friendship, I kind of got a little mad at him. He's not an AA guy. It's a guy I worked with. I said, you're a Mormon and you're supposed to try and get me to come to Mormon church. And we've talked about God 100 times over 2 or 3 years, and you've never invited me to church. And I'm offended because you guys knock on strangers' doors and ask them to come to church. And you're not inviting me to church. Why are you not inviting me to church? I feel a little, seriously, like everybody qualifies but me. You guys send people to South America and Africa and China to try and get them to become Mormon. Bicycles and white shirts, for God's sakes. And I don't get invited. And he started laughing and he said, we send the kids out to do that stuff, but when you're involved in the church as I am, you learn something. And I said, what's that? He said, if God wanted you to be a Mormon, Sheldon, you'd be a Mormon and there'd be nothing you could do about it. And he don't want you to be a Mormon because you're not. So you got to find your way that God wants you to talk to him. And I was meditating and contemplating on that conversation, and I didn't find God's face. I found his heart. I don't need his face. I found his heart. I found there is a thing in me that is not of me or by me, that likes the sunset, that loves puppies, that giggles when babies smile, that cries when you tell me your kids are okay, that when I saw that your mom passed, that made me sad for you boys, because I know how close you are to your mom. And that is, if that is not God living in me, and if that's in me, it must be in you. It must be in everything. I'm going to sound a little crazy. I'll leave you with some craziness, Ron, and let you pick up. I've been having this experience lately where I don't even think any of this is real anymore. I think I'm just playing at being a Sheldon, so God knows what it's like to be a Sheldon. I don't know why you'd want to know what it's like being a Sheldon. Sometimes it kind of sucks, but you know what? He wants to know. And so my job is to be a Sheldon for him. And I'm okay with that. And I'm okay with that. And I am grateful to be one of, to be part of, to be included in this beautiful piece of art, to be a brushstroke in this painting of the universe, that we all get to do the dance, we all get to play the tune, and we all get to be part of the art. And I'm grateful for that.
like I said, I hate your ass because you get to be deep and shit, dude. That is some beautiful shit, man. I'm telling you, man. I'm telling you, it really, really is. You have me tearing up over here, right? Uh, all right, so I'm I my undoing, if there ever was a thing that was going to be my undoing, it's always been the fear of financial insecurity. That I have, if I've ever been fearful and had doubts about whether or not God is working in my life or not, it's when I've been broke or when I've had money threatened or my livelihood threatened or anything like that. It's when I have the most fear come up. I don't know if that comes from the poverty, stricken upbringing I had. I don't know if it's the fact that my dad seemed to be a financial failure and I never wanted to be like that. I don't know where it all comes from, but if ever there's a tipping point for me, it's when that happens. In our third step prayer, Sheldon, it says, take away my difficulties that victory over them may bear. And I was wondering why, why is that, such a big part of the third step prayer? And, when I got disbarred 10 years ago, I wanted to kill myself. I wanted to commit suicide because I was so ashamed of, of the fact that I was losing my license and that I thought everyone would know that I'm a failure, that I've thrown away this gift. I've done whatever because I'm thinking that had been my greatest achievement. The fact that here's this kid from the ghetto, from the hood who rises up, who's able to go to college and law school and do all this other kind of stuff. And I was thinking that's one of the shiny parts of my story. And I get to come and talk about how God had restored it once I got sober because I thought I had lost it. And I get sober and now I'm Perry Mason in the fellowship. I'm representing everybody's kids and I'm doing all this other kind of stuff, right? And now I'm losing it and I want to kill myself, right? And I'm wondering who would ever want me to speak at a meeting again because I'm this failure. And I find out down the line that people tell me that the best part, they say the best part of my story, Ronald, where you helped me the most is not that you got a license, is that you lost the license and you didn't drink. It's not that you didn't drink and you got your license back. It's that you lost your license and you didn't drink. That you were able to stay sober in spite of that. That you were able to, and then, Sheldon, I got closer to my wife. I gained more humility. I ended up getting a job working with the homeless downtown on Skid Row. I end up, I'm not representing murderers and well, maybe I was well, anyway, I represent, all the people that I've been representing as a criminal defense attorney, all that stuff. Now I'm actually working on the front line with folks. Now my life has turned around. 4 weeks ago, I get a call I had two jobs. One of the people I work with called me 4 weeks ago and they tell me, Mr. White, our business is kind of like underwater and we've been looking to cut costs. And so, we're going to start doing your job in-house. And so, as of 2 weeks from now, we don't need your services anymore. And all of a sudden my income is cut in half. Now I'm 70. I told you I'm 70. And I'm thinking to myself, wait, you're my retirement money. You're my money that I'm supposed to be saving and doing whatever. And Sheldon, I got scared for 1 minute. And the next minute after that, I got excited. Because what I said is, okay, God, what do you have for me now? Right? What's the next thing? Because my experience that happened when I lost my license now I didn't like being unemployed for 2 years. See, some people like the success story of, well, now your life is great after well, I had to be unemployed for 2 years. We had to do all our shopping at Dollar Tree and a 99-cent store. We couldn't go on do any more trip dates or excursions or nothing like that. It was real lean times. We almost got evicted during that time. We lost our home. We declared bankruptcy. We moved into a rental property that the landlord had to file an eviction notice. Alcoholics Anonymous and my brothers saved us. They paid our rent for 2 years, helped us pay our rent for 2 years before I could get a job. So, it's not like this, overnight success story. I had to go through some stuff, but the experience that there's always another side lets me know that God is always there. The experience lets me know that God is always there. You talked about what Bazan says about life lived looking forward, understood looking back. I now understand because I've been able now to look back on my experience and know God has always been there. Some people do this hokey thing. I used to think it was hokey. I started saying it was hokey because I liked it at first. The little thing, the poster with footprints, where there's the two sets of footprints on the sand at first, and then there's one set, and then the guy says, God, during my hard times, why did you leave me? And God says, son, I never left. That's the time I carried you. Right. And I need to remember that I need to remember that every time that I've been down, God has carried me. That's my experience. So I have no doubt about this relationship I have with this power, because whether or not I'm aware of it or not, in the spiritual experience at the back of the book, they say the essence of the spiritual experience is the awareness of the power, right? Because it's always been there, Sheldon. It's always been there. I've been asleep, or I've been in my arrogance. I've been thinking it's me and my intellect and what have you. And it's always been God. Anyway, enough of me. Enough of me. I think we're supposed to shut up and see whether or not there's some questions in the chat or whatever. Sheldon, thank you. Sheldon, I always enjoy talking with you, whether or not it's in this platform, on the phone, or whatever. Sheldon was responsible for me and my wife taking the trip to Panama. He had a friend he hooked me up with who asked us to come speak and do a convention in Panama. Thank you, Sheldon. We went back to Panama for our anniversary as a result of that. We didn't know that you had hooked us up with the only English speaking people in Panama. So when we went back, nobody spoke English. We were screwed. Anyway, Raquel, thank you. Thank you, Raquel.
Thank you both. Both. And of course, this is not the end of the meeting. I thank you for actually allowing me this time right now to first say that I didn't say that you were all over the place. I say there is God all over the place. I just have to put closed captioning, Ronald, but next time, okay? What I do want to, so I am just, I think this is what it's evident to me today in my life, and how important it is the fellowship that we have and how blessed we are, because every time somebody talks about their experience, there's footprints to follow for the rest of us. There's people who show us how you actually continue to walk and that you are okay. So now, before I give to the best question maker over there, I am just going to throw a couple of questions, right? If it's okay. First, Ron, that was so amazing when you talked about is the seeking. It is not the finding. And then I'm actually thinking about what Sheldon was talking about. Sheldon, that was beautiful, first of all, because if every time we talk about God, all of us can just share how close we feel to God, it almost feels unattainable. it almost feels like, what am I doing wrong that I don't get into that point, right? But he was talking about the seeking, and I was seeing you, and your seeking has not stopped, and you were seeking for God's face, and you found His heart. Oh, Jesus, that was just so beautiful. That was so beautiful. And lately, I've been thinking about this, that like we're all walking in the same direction, no matter what. And the fact that you found God's heart, that was just like lovely. Now, Ralph, you can go ahead and ask a bunch of questions if you want. Thank you guys so much.
My name is Ralph White. I'm an alcoholic. Before this meeting, I just talked on another meeting about Tradition 12, where we don't have big shots. So I'm not going to ask a lot of questions, Raquel. Don't confer that power on me because I'm your sponsor. But I have a question for each one of these gentlemen. Sheldon, you, as usual, you took us a place. I almost think I might have the answer to this, but I'm going to ask you, let's just come out just in a regular way. So over the course of your sobriety, the course of these 30 years, over the course of your sobriety, from the inception of this God idea to where you rest now, and you said something that it may be there. When you just look back yourself, what has been, I think, the biggest and most, if you think about young Sheldon getting sober to the wise Job Sheldon, what has been the most astonishing shift to you in either your conception or, more importantly, your relationship with this power? And that one is for you. And I'll ask that, and then I'll ask Ronnie's because I want to hear yours. And I got one for Ronnie.
I think the short answer to that, Ralph, is that when I first got sober and I first started trying to turn my life over to God and trying to trust God, I was doubtfully hopeful that God might be there. I didn't think so, but I hoped so. And I expect it now. I have an expectation now that everything's going to be okay. I mean, I don't have a job. Well, I have a job that I'm supposed to start January 28th. I don't know if it's the right job. I'm still looking. I don't know what I'm doing, but I know it's going to be okay. I don't know what it's going to be, but I know it's going to be okay. And so I think from doubtful hope to expectation is what the journey has taken me.
Wow. That's powerful. That is, now for my brother, when we talk about, and now we're going to talk about God. So in the midst of what's going on right now, when we talk about this idea of God, now we just going to have to erase all the other people that's here right now. And of course, this is just your perception, your understanding, your belief, whatever. What's up with Ma?
So, wow. So the way that, as you know, Ralph, my mama had an abiding belief that she was going to go be with God. That, she's going to heaven, as I envision as this place that she goes where God is. I don't know what the fully formed thing is. I know that she is not in human form, but I believe she's in spiritual form. This is what my belief is that she is, and I believe that I'm going to see her again. I firmly believe that. I believe that a part of her is with me right now. A part of her is with you. When we went to the Rams game, The day after my mother died, we were at the Rams game together. At first, I was thinking to myself, will people think that we're all heathens and that we're just blasphemous and we're going to a football game the day after Mama died? Me and Ralph, our oldest brother, Will, and Reggie, we went to the Rams. And when we took a Uber there, and then and as we were in the Uber coming home, we shared stories about our childhood, each one of us getting in some form of trouble or how mama got us. And, how when I would get a whooping, I would be, I'm the kind of guy that hid under the bed so mama couldn't get me. Now I think it was under the table. They claim I was under the bed. I don't know how I could get under a bed, Sheldon, because I'm not a spider or I'm not a mouse that I can contract, but they claim I was under the bed. Ralph was kind of arrogant. Ralph he and my oldest brother Will, they would just try to be strong and not cry. And my mother would have to continue to whoop them anyway, we shared stories like that. So we were able to keep mama alive in that way. When you say what's happening with mama, Ralph, I think she is right here with us. I think that she is right here, right now with us spiritually. And I have absolutely no doubt. I'm waiting on her to come to me in a dream like she did for you. I don't know why she's favoring you. She better come on. I'm going to be pretty pissed off about this. But I don't know if you feel this, Ralph, but I've been feeling somewhat guilty because all the calls have been inundating me and I don't know if I feel sad but grateful. And I don't know if I'm supposed to be expressing some form of grief or some form of outward display of emotion or whatever, that I feel content with where I think mama is. I feel happy. I don't know if that's supposed to be a bad thing, that I feel happy in this instance. So there's this mixture that I feel of this, and I don't want to feel guilty about the way that I feel because it's just the way that I feel right now.
Ah, yes, you appreciated the diamond necklace. That's it. That's anyways, anybody has a question, guys, raise your hand. No, nothing is off topic here except only outside issues, but go ahead, just bring it on. If there's any questions or comments for either Ron or Sheldon, raise your hand. This is the time.
And if y'all going to ask me a question, you better hurry up because I see the preacher at the door right there again. She's reappeared. So I think my time is short with you guys.
Let's have a couple of minutes max. Bobby, if you have a question, go ahead.
Yeah, I'm Bobby Alcock. Kat said to put it in a chat to both of them. So I don't know if they had a chance to see the chat. You have it, Raquel. So does Kat. Basically, you can't use Job, but what biblical figure, it doesn't even have to be Christian or Judaic, any figure is your favorite and why? Just quick. Ron's got to run. Not Job. Sheldon's Job.
That's for you, Ron. I'm not a biblical scholar, so.
Well, Jesus. Jesus. that's why.
Sheldon, you don't have any?
He's not a biblical scholar.
I'm not a biblical guy. Yeah.
All right. Ron, if you need to go, please. I'm so sorry. You can feel free to just jump out. But
let me just tell you guys, Raquel, I love you, and I love this format. I'm going to respect the church. They gave me this space for right now, but I'm going to go ahead and absent it because for whatever reason they must need this space. I love you all, and Raquel, thank you so much for having me. I apologize for having to leave.
Thank you, Ronald. We loved you very much too. Mike, you're okay? Go ahead, ask your question. Sheldon is staying with us for another 3-4 minutes.
Okay, just a quick question, Sheldon, and this was for you. When you're going through all this stuff that you're going through right now, and you say that it's really not shaking your faith, but when your faith is shaken and you feel that separation, just maybe you're not feeling it. Do you have a technique or a way that you go about getting it back?
I do, Mike, and thank you for the question. I have a prayer that I probably say more than any other prayer, and I call it the Help Me Remember prayer. Throughout the book, once we get into, especially in the 10, 11, 6, 7, the methodology for me is to understand that God's got this, and that I have fear, I have anxiety, I have resentment, I have self-pity, I have these things that come up that block me. And that the answer for me is to help me remember that God's got this. I'm afraid, God. Why am I afraid? I'm afraid because I've forgotten that I can trust you. I'm resentful, God. Why am I resentful? I'm resentful because I've forgotten that you've got my back, God, and everything's going to be okay. Why am I in self-pity? Because I've forgotten. And so I will find myself many times saying, God, help me remember that you got this. The problem is I've forgotten. There is no other problem other than that I have forgotten that I can trust you and I should trust you. And so I find myself asking God to help me remember that he's got my back. And it's very effective for me.
Thank you, Sheldon. Thank you so much. Sheldon, thank you so much for coming with us from the Philippines, and Ron for sure. And, we're going to close the meeting now. And in closing,